Hello everyone, my name is Godswill Okora. I'll be presenting a PowerPoint on air pollution in codes regional states. Before we start, we'll have to have understanding about air pollution. Air pollution is caused by mixture of gases. It could be heavy gases like hydrocarbons or suspense of particulate matters. So in this aspect, we're looking at the constituents of air pollution, the history of air pollution, and effects. In the history of air pollution, we know that air pollution must have been generated from automobiles, heavy machineries, any machines that use uh, fuel or gasoline to generate power. So the effect of that is what combines with the air and then probably causes a risk to us. Healthy people cannot be far from having issues that is health impacted from polluted air. And one of the things that we experience for someone that may have been exposed to high concentration of air pollution could be respiratory irritation or breathing difficulties during exercises or outdoor activities. But it's obvious that for our everyday activities we are exposed to the air consumption, and then we are not sure our status. So this presentation will give us an insight for us to understand what air pollution is, what causes it, and how we can be able to improve our living standard by making sure that we toe the line of the Clean Air Act to live a comfortable life. Now we're talking about the regional states. We have about 7 regional states we've been identified that could be affected with air pollution, namely Montana, Vermont, Wyoming, Minnesota, Maine, North Dakota, and Alaska. For the purpose of this presentation, we might be talking a little bit more on Vermont, which happens to be the state I reside temporarily for my jurisdiction, and looking at the environment and what effort they're doing to make sure that they maintain the standard. What are the pollutants associated with this air pollution? There's what we call the ground level ozone. It's one of them. This ground level ozone is formed from the volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and the oxides of nitrogen. They react with the sun's ultraviolet rays, and the effect of that is when it gets to the peak, it affects the lungs, irritates the skin for some individuals, and then also we have what we call constriction of the airways. So that happens when we have our respiratory system working harder to provide oxygen. Another aspect of the air constituent is what we call the particulate matter and wildfire smoke. Particulate matter is a complex mixture of soot, smoke, metals, nitrates, sulfates, dust, water, and tire rubber. What happens is that the smokes that comes from fire can form in the atmosphere, and also the reaction between the nitrogen oxide, that is what causes the smoke. And then the fine particulate matter, these are the things sometimes we see it with our naked eyes, at most times we don't. But the size of 2.5 parts per million of that particular matter is what bypasses the body natural defenses and goes deep into the lungs or even potentially our bloodstream. This exposure to such could affect the lungs and also the heart. Then we move further to see how can we see the air qualities, probably looking at the ozone level. How clean can a particular city be? How clean can a state be? The diagram describes the coloring, the green indicates that it is good. The yellow is describing that it is moderate, while the orange color indicates that it's moderately unhealthy, and the red is really unhealthy. So when we find ourselves within the yellow and the red color, it appears that we might have to be cognizant of the effect and then seek medical attention when needed. Then what are the health risks associated with air pollution? It's obvious that when we get self-exposed, we have been hearing about, respiratory system, being compromised, but there are other diseases that we can also suffer. Among the diseases, or health risk we're looking at is the one, caused by the heart and lungs that makes it work harder. It damages the cells in the respiratory system. And also long-term exposure of this can also lead to permanent health effects such as accelerated aging of the lungs. It is also notes for us to understand that cardiovascular and respiratory illness cannot be far from the individual that are vulnerable. Further effects could also be seen as diseases such as asthma, bronchitis, emphysema, possibly could also be cancerous. This and other health-related issues can shorten one's lifespan. There's a diagram indicates the effects of this air pollution in our lungs. You could notice that we've been talking about lungs, heart, all this while, because this is those areas that we have a transmission of air and also a blood that is being generated. Remember, we need oxygen to produce blood. So if we don't get the required oxygen that is clean, it affects the lungs. And what affects the lungs affects the heart. So you see the diagram that explains the effect of air pollution in the lungs, where it's the good quality air allows a wide open pathway, while the high ozone level contrasts the muscle and also narrow it. This is why some individuals might be having breathing difficulty. Looking at what we are going through as far as COVID, I would say from certain correlation of facts that since it is from airborne, it most likely contributes to one of these unclean air we find ourselves into. And I know scientifically it has not been, it is still being looked up to, but I want to say if we have lived in an environment that has at least 70-80% of clean air, we may have not been able to suffer this COVID as much as we're going through. Hopefully, those in authority get it right. Moving forward, the effects of the human, as explained, continue to be like diseases like COPD, which is a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And also where people that are pregnant, women, can also suffer from health-related issues. It is also noted for us to understand that those that work outdoor, like construction workers, athletes, we spend most of your time outside, we happen to be at risk. Not to say, we live our life being indoors, but however, we always have to be outside, probably either going to get grocery or catching up with friends or other job-related activity. But the study is trying to explain to us that outdoor activities most times keep one at risk of having this air pollution, because of course you have the automobiles on the road, you have heavy machineries, you have every activities. So it's most likely we breathe in those, unclean air, and that could be a health risk to us. The diagram that explains the short-term effect and the long-term effect of this air pollution, you could see the short-term effect, we have headache, eyes inflammation, coughing, painful, pneumonia, breathing, bronchitis, skin irritation. While the long-term effect talks about the cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease, liver impact, and also the reproductive system is also impacted. Either way, the victim is always at risk. Most likely, if care is not taken, he might lose his life. Further explanation of this, it talks about short-term effects as explained in the diagram. And then we move forward to how do we control this air pollution? We've seen the history, we talk about the state, the source, the health risk associated to it, the diagram. But now, how can we control this air? How do we use the position we have in the government to legislate law that can be enforced, that individuals can be able to pay attention to health-related risk and control it? One of the things from the point of scientific view is that we have to identify those constituent elements, and those ones in the form of hydrocarbon. We have the sulfur dioxide, ammonia, carbon monoxide, etc. This can be controlled using 3 different methods. Those methods include combustion, absorption, and adsorption. So when we use these 3 techniques, it helps to control the gaseous constituents, being escalated to the air. Then we have also another method which the use of maybe in factories, building chimneys, very tall chimneys. The point, the objective of that is to ensure that the smokes that come off from the industries goes right up on the air. By the time it comes down to our level, it must have been filtered out. Also, when we have pay attention to our smokeless fuel equipment in the homes, like I know some homes might be using a DC generator. It is worth to know that the smoke that is being generated might be harmful to our health. So if we can run a smokeless fuels in the home, that would be a welcome idea for us to control air pollution. Recently, the state of Vermont, like I did mention, have gone a long way to embrace clean energy. And also one of those aspects and source of energy is the solar and wind energy. So they've been able to encourage the occupants or residents to live, using solar energy, and also try to turn off the light when you don't need it. So that aspect and this ideology helps to control the air pollution. More also, they have also tried to see that vehicles at a certain age bracket cannot be registered, and also they make sure that the inspections are thoroughly taken care of. Finally, the planting of tree along the roadsides or houses can also help to control air pollution. The reason being that the tree, as we know from the sciences, that the tree takes the carbon dioxide which we breathe out and convert it and send the oxygen to us which we breathe in. So planting more trees will give more avenue for more oxygen to be generated, to be returned back to human, while we breathe out the CO2 that is not good for our body. State of Vermont, like I did mention earlier, have done a lot through the Department of Environmental Conservation to ensure that air quality is being maintained, and measure the ozone, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, and toxic elements. This is usually monitored in the station in Underhill, Burlington, Rutland, and Bennington. The improvement of air quality. Air quality, like I said earlier, was enacted in 1970, which we know as the Environmental Protection Agency. Their basic mission is to ensure that the pollutants that is in the air can be controlled, to ensure that all Americans have same basic health and environmental protection. What that implies is that we have about 50 states. There won't be no one state that will be densely populated or polluted with air. So they try to monitor and control the effect of those emissions. And this is done also by looking at the standards as described by the National Ambient Air Quality, because this standard they present is what they use at each other states use to see where they are and if they need improvement. In summary, we all know that the air we breathe cannot be free from pollutants. The motor vehicles, building heating systems, manufacturing industries that generate air pollution. These all affect the emissions that occur outside the state or within. But however, we have an important role to play, and that implies following the guidelines on how we can control the air pollution. While the air pollution affects all of us, it is particularly harmful to children, seniors, and other individuals that are suffering from respiratory illness. As a plan to limit the effect of air pollution in the state of Vermont, the Department of Motor Vehicle have strict guidelines on vehicle inspection and roadworthiness. Citizens in the state of Vermont are encouraged to switch to use of electric cars and LED lights that are energy efficient at home. Additionally, the use of carpool or ride share are practiced more here in Vermont. This helps to reduce the flow of traffic and automobiles on the road. That's another smart way to control the flows of cars. In the absence of this, they also have the public transport system, the train, the ferry, city bus, which has run under the clean energy fuel. So that could also be available for citizens to use as an alternative. Even though we've gone through all these parts, we still have some questions that we have not gotten a clear answer. The questions we ask ourselves: what role are citizens? What are the roles citizens required to play to sustain green environment in the midst of this pandemic, COVID-19? How can we encourage independent research for world health problems without being partisan? Can government allow EPA to remain non-political for the good of the people? How do we ensure clean water and healthy environment for all? If we're able to answer these questions, that will bring us closer to our concept of addressing the issue of air pollution, controlling it, and making sure we live in an environment that's suitable for all. At this point, I will yield and then thank you for your undivided attention and time, and I look forward for any comments, concerns, questions, and clarification. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.